19th September. There we go. Microphone has kicked in. Thank you. I will, as is usual, go through the consent agenda, and there is an item that I would like to add, and I know that there is a motion that will require waiving of the rules from the committee in order to put that on the agenda. My intention is to ask for a verbal report from the outset from Stephen Willis, who has joined us, in order to address the fact that we were to have been reporting in September on greenhouse gas inventory, and he's going to give us a status update of that and another matter that I think this committee will find of interest, given our own very strong interest in the climate protection agenda and greenhouse gas targets that we've set for ourselves. So I propose that we start with that verbal report, if that's agreeable to the committee. Seeing nods and no shaking the heads, thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? Seeing none. Confirmation of minutes of Tuesday the 19th of June 2018. Are those received? Thank you. Communications, we have one on the water turbines question in your package. Presentations, we will then have a presentation from Public Services and Procurement Canada on their work to modernize the district energy system, which is very relevant both to city buildings itself and to some other developments of private buildings within the city. That would be item 1, so we are of course holding that for that presentation. Item 2, water utility bill deferral program for low-income seniors and persons with disabilities. Does anyone wish to hold that item, or is that carried? Carried, thank you. And then a status update, well, it's simply the status update, Environment Climate Protection Committee inquiries and motions. Those are received. Thank you. Then we would have a motion to add to the agenda, a procedural motion then to add to the agenda one on these. So with everyone's consent to add that item to the agenda, so that I believe it's Councillor McKinney will be tabling a motion along with on behalf of Councillor Regline. Is that right? Okay, thank you. So permission to put that on the agenda? Thank you. Granted, thank you. All right. All right then, if I might turn to Mr. Willis, please, to give us an update. Would you mind, we're all looking back over our heads, if you would be okay coming to the table in front of us? So thank you for coming. If you could please remind committee and everyone attending what the commitment of this committee, or at least the expectations for reporting by this September meeting were, and where the status of that work is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the committee will just remind the committee, we are working towards an update of our air quality and climate change master plan, and that update is due in early 2019. But we committed as part of the process earlier this year that we would have the updated inventory for the fall of 2018 of our current emission status. The consultant working on the file has had some delays in actually compiling the information together, and we don't expect to see their report until October. And at that point, we would then be able to report back on the results of the effort that they're doing. It's actually a complex process assembling from the various sources of information. Our elements and some of the delays are due to them receiving the sources of information from that they need in order to compile their estimates. But we are on track to completing that by the fall, as we said, just a little later than we anticipated, and it will be a key input to the air quality and climate change master plan update. Also, at committee's direction, previously we've been asked to look at the increase in the frequency of the reporting from 4 years to a lower horizon time, and we are looking right now at presuming the data comes in as we expect, and it is more straightforward to compile once we have this new methodology of at least going to every 2 years of reporting on that. And the third item that at budget time committee asked me to look at within our department is creating a position dedicated to climate change. And I'm pleased to say that without changing our departmental resources, we did manage to reallocate internal resources to create a new position focused on this. It's still in the process of its HR process for establishing the position in the job evaluations and like, so it won't be posted till later in the year, but we have managed to find internal resources within our existing staff complement to focus on this topic.
Thank you. I guess you've got a few minutes to take a couple of questions. I know I asked him to come, though he had other commitments already, so go ahead, please, Councillor Leeper.
Thanks. And I just, can we unpack some of the delays in getting that? I understand it's probably complex, but what is the data that has been delayed in terms of coming to the table? And I think what I'm really interested in is this work that if we had staff resources devoted to it, would have been on time?
Mr. Chair, just to come to the back end of the question, I don't think it has to do with staff resources. I think it has to do with the fact that, and this is something we've corporately discovered, that in receiving our various sources of energy, whether it's hydro energy, it's natural gas, it's propane, diesel, whatever the vehicles, we actually have a very vast number of billing systems where this information comes in and is not actually consolidated. So our finance department is actually working in a process to consolidate how that information is even collected, so in the future it would be much, much more efficient. It is not a function of staff resources, it's a function of how many sources you have to go to get the information you have to do that. So I don't want to blame the consultant. There is some delays in the project from the consultant, but I think it is more from us finding the information to provide them to do their number crunching to get the results back to us.
So the methodologies that you're establishing now, once those are set, are going to be fairly turnkey in terms of turning on the information and getting it in a more timely fashion moving forward?
It's a process we're working on with our corporate services department. That is a fix in progress. It will be better than it is today.
Okay. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. And if I might add to that, perhaps you can confirm this. I believe this to be the case, that it is highly unusual that any city would actually have the in-house resources, technical resources to be doing this kind of work. My recollection is that very leading cities like Vancouver, Toronto, and others have all gone out to consultants, many of them to the same consultant that the city itself is using. And it probably wouldn't be great value for the taxpayers for the city to have that kind of very specific expertise full-time as a staff member, so rather it is something that does depend on a consultant's work.
Mr. Chair, you're correct. As a matter of fact, I believe the consultant we're using is also currently working for the City of Toronto, doing a very similar exercise for them too. So you're quite correct. This is usually, as far as I know, I don't know a municipality that does this in-house.
Thank you very much on short notice for answering that. This is something of great concern to this committee, and of course the delay it does concern us, but to show we do have a sense of humor, all I have to do is say light rail, to say that one sets a target, one does its utmost to reach it, but sometimes it slips a little. But I do appreciate your updating us and getting this as soon as possible. Thank you. Sorry if that was a sore point for everyone, but too soon. All right. All right then, if we might move on then please to Public Services and Procurement Canada. We've got several people coming, and I'll just ask you, once you take your seats, the public delegation seats, to introduce yourselves for us. And I believe you've got a PowerPoint presentation as well to show, is that right? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Miguel Martin. I'm the project manager for the P3 project as ESAP. It's a program with different projects. Here on the table you have the team responsible for the development of the P3 project.
Hi, my name is Connor Morosi. I'm with Public Service Procurement Canada, Environmental Regulations and Compliance Group, and right now I'm responsible for developing the environmental obligations for the P3 proponent.
Hi, Linda Karkner from Public Works, Planning, Infrastructure, Economic Development, and the Right-of-Way Group in the city.
And Corkery, Manager Right-of-Way, Heritage and Urban Design. So with that, we'll turn it over to our colleagues at Public Works to go through the presentation.
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here to explain about our project and as well to the City of Ottawa. We're working with Linda's team to develop this project, and they have been very, very helpful in terms of developing the project and the land rights that we are required to build it. ESAP is a program that was established 9 years ago to respond to the needs of the existing district energy system. You may not know, but in Ottawa and Gatineau, we have a district energy system with 6 energy plants and distribution networks that provide heating and cooling to more than 80 buildings. This infrastructure, it's been decades that has been in place, and it's it's aging. It requires a retrofit of the existing infrastructure, not only in terms of safety, but also in terms of providing more efficient services to our buildings. The ISAP program, there are 2 stages, and we will enter into details for each stage. Stage 1 is focused on the modernization of the existing infrastructure, the existing district energy system, and stage 2 is another initiative, which is to even further reduce GHG emissions with the stage 2. ISAP program responds to the commitments from the Government of Canada, not only internationally, but as well with the different provinces, the environmental commitments that the government has. Also our own department, Public Works, we have our own objectives, and also this program supports the objectives of Treasury Board and the Center for Greening Government. We have an excellent opportunity here. District energy systems they are projects that they are looking at the long term. And right now we have an excellent opportunity to build a new project, a new system that will provide the baseline for the future. In this case, in the last years, we have been going through an analysis process, looking at other precedent projects, mainly in North America and in Europe, to see how other cities, how other clients, they develop district energy systems and how they expanded. So the ISAP team really looked at other precedent projects, and now we are coming here with this approach, this governance model, with this procurement contract, with this opportunity to expand the system to other stakeholders. The objectives of ISAP are 7 objectives. The first one is to provide a more efficient, more reliable and greener solution to provide heating and cooling services to our buildings. But as well, it has to be cost efficient. We report to our taxpayers, you too, and the solution that we will provide after the facilities are modernized, it will reduce in the long term the energy costs associated with heating and cooling services. Other objective that we have, ISAP, is to, once we build this baseline, once we have this new infrastructure, is to share this infrastructure with other stakeholders, public and private buildings. In particular with public, because we would be very happy to share the benefits of our project with our partners, with the other level government entities. We would be very happy to do so. In fact, as you may know, we have a working MOU with the City of Ottawa to explore opportunities to connect the system to buildings where there is a case, where there is from a greener and cost-efficient point of view, there is a positive business case. Also, the other objective is cliff plant. It happens that out of the 6 energy plants, one of them is located next to the Supreme Court. So you can imagine the interest of NCC to make that particular plant from an architectural point of view, a pleasant facility. So we're working with NCC to make sure that we will be proud of that facility once it's built. As well, on top of the facility near Supreme Court, that energy plant will have a visitor education center. That small facility will serve for us to explain the process, how the government, how we are working hard to reduce our environmental footprint, and for the new generations to come to explain them the message, to be more efficient in terms of reducing the overall environmental footprint. I mentioned before that we have 2 stages. ISAP has 2 stages. One, right now we're focused on the modernization of the existing infrastructure. There are different projects. One is the P3 contract. that we are right now in the middle of the procurement. This contract will help us to modernize the generation and distribution assets, the energy plants and the distribution networks. We will have a contract for 35 years with a private partner that will modernize. They will be responsible for designing, building, financing, operating, and maintaining these assets. Also, there are other projects associated with the stage 1, which is building conversion and smart buildings. Building conversion, some of the buildings, in order to take on the new technology, they need to be retrofitted, mainly in the basement of the building, is to replace the energy transfer station that will be able to take on the new technology. And also smart buildings, that's another project under stage 1. So through intelligent devices, we are helping the building managers to reduce with initiatives, with very easy initiatives in terms of operating, how they can reduce the energy consumption of the buildings. Stage 2, we're working right now we're going through the feasibility studies and the approval process. The stage 2 is focused on how can we do better, how can we further reduce GHG emissions, and we're looking at building a biomass plant. Most likely it will be located in the city of Gatineau, and will connect the plant will be connected to the district energy, and will reduce further the GHG emissions by providing heating with using low carbon fuels. Looking at the baseline in 2005, we have reduced already the GHG emissions by 30% with different initiatives in our buildings, with the Smart Building Initiative. With the stage 1, we are hoping to reduce the GHG emissions by another 33%. And with the stage 2, we will be in a situation where we have reduced almost 91% of the GHG emissions that we had back in 2005. This is a graphical representation of the different plants that we have right now in Gatineau and Ottawa. On the north, you have National Printing Bureau. In this case, that facility, the building envelope will remain intact, and the private partner is required to retrofit the electromechanical system. Confederation Heights will follow the same approach. NRC will be decommissioned, and the main plants will be Cliff Plant and Tannis-Perser Plant. These two plants will be demolished, and there will be full new facilities that will host heating and cooling equipment for the services of the buildings. Something very important that I didn't mention, all these plants will be connected. Some of them they are already connected through different distribution networks. Actually through tunnels. For instance, Cliff Plant and NRC, they are connected through tunnels. Wellington Street, that's one of the cases. It's existing infrastructure. This infrastructure has been already for more than 50, 60 years. So right now we're working with the City of Ottawa to formalize the land rights associated to the fact that we are using different land from different owners, NCC and City of Ottawa mainly, for the project. The generation assets are within PSPC land. So now that you have an idea of where the different plants are located, in the next slide we represent the potential growth that the district energy system may have. We have developed a heat intensity map, which basically what it does is it looks at downtown Ottawa and Gatineau, and we identify the key areas where, with low investment in terms of building distribution network connecting to the buildings, we can obtain a significant return on the investment by reducing the energy cost, by reducing the GHG emissions. So we have identified the potential area of expansion in this slide. The government, through the budget 2016, they committed funds to ISAP for stage 1 to implement the project and to further explore to reduce further GHG emissions with stage 2. Right now we are in the middle of the procurement with the stage 1. We, as you know very well, the P3 model, as you may do with your confederation line. In this case, right now we are during the RFP phase. This project will be delivered through this contract, a P3 contract. The model is very similar to what has been done in Canada with other projects. The key difference is that the financing is limited to the construction phase. The private partner will be responsible for designing, building, operating and maintaining the assets for 35 years, including during the construction phase. We are targeting to sign the contract with the private partner in the spring of next year, and there will be a transition period, and then the private partner will take on the operations of the existing system. They will start the construction, and they will continue with operation of the new facilities. These are the two processes that you know very well. Right now we are in the RFP phase. And we are working with the City of Ottawa to secure the land rights for the project. We're also working with the City of Ottawa in terms of the permits that are required to the project to be able, so we can transfer all these requirements to the private partner. And in the next slide, and this is my last slide of the presentation, we just represent the new connection that will be required for the project. The rest is existing infrastructure already in place. On the right, you can see Cliff Plant and Cliff Plant and Tanis on the left side of the slide. These two plants will be connected, and mostly through the NCC land. And there are some sections that require a City of Ottawa agreement in terms of land rights, and we're working with the city on towards that. Also, we are connecting the city of Gatineau through Portage Bridge, which is not in this slide, but that's the other new connection. And that's it. Questions?
Great, thank you very much. I suspect some committee members might have some questions. I was particularly interested in having this report to us, this briefing, because as all of us will know with our energy evolution strategy, it is not just about what the City of Ottawa in capital letters as a corporation does, but what we as a city can accomplish with all of the different partners that exist in this city, whether they are very major land holding and building operating partners like the federal government or the private sector or other institutions, and particularly where there's an opportunity for synergy. Here is a system that is not owned by the City of Ottawa and would not be owned by the City of Ottawa, and yet there is an opportunity for many of our own operations down the road to be connected to this system. So that thought would be useful for us all to know. Before I forget, because I wanted to do it from the outset, I do just want to recognize that we have a number of big brothers and big sisters is having an event today, and a number of the, I guess, little brothers and sisters are here with us. Do we want to just introduce? We go quickly around the table. I guess, Councillor Redguy.
Sure, thank you. So this is my little for the day, Jeff. Say hi.
No, Scott, I'm not the little one. This is Kareem here. Kareem, you want to tell them what grade and what school you go to?
I'm grade 5.
What school do you go to?
Roberta Bandar.
Okay.
My name is Ayush. I go to Our Lady Peace Catholic School, and I'm in grade 6.
And good morning, this is Ryan.
Hi.
He's a man of few words.
Thank you for joining us, and I know Councillor Wilkinson was here briefly with a little as well. So you may not have known that you were going to learn a lot about district energy systems and their opportunity here. You may not have expected it, but there you go. Not just about how committees work, but about some of the opportunities that you, I hope, will be able to grow up to see happening here in the city. So with that little interlude, please, do we have committee members? Councillor Lieber?
I think I have two questions. One, the connections between the facilities would make it possible to use this, I think, for the city's Bayview Yards eventual redevelopment, and of course the Tunney's pasture. Would Tunney's pasture, as much of that land goes into private hands for the planned redevelopment of that, would those private developers be required to avail themselves of the availability of this cleaner energy source?
That's a good question. The Tunney's pasture CHCP, the plant, right now we are sizing the electromechanical equipment to be able to respond to the needs of certain capacity. The building envelope will be built to a size that can accommodate expansion to all the master Tunney's pasture redevelopment plan. If it will be a requirement or not, that's something that we don't have the answer at this moment.
So I can't imagine why developers would not want to, but even if they did, I think it would be important to require them to avail themselves of the availability of these cleaner energy. So I'll look forward to following that moving forward. My second question, when you say that the plants are connected, you mentioned there would be some impacts on city lands. What do those connections actually look like? Like, what are the pipes and infrastructure that go into place?
So the main new connection is between Cliff Plant on the right side and Tunney's campus. Basically, the distribution network, they will basically is cut and cover. They dig, and then they put the pipe, and then they restate the land to the previous status. In this case, we're crossing a couple of streets that are managed by the City of Ottawa, and then we jump into the NCC corridor. It's small sections for the City of Ottawa. Maybe Linda.
But I think that gives me the idea I was looking for. It's literally a pipe then that is underground, and that is the connection that's required.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Is buried infrastructure or is within the tunnels, existing tunnels?
Councillor McKinney.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to pick up on that. I'm looking at this map here and the new development, that triangle. I believe that's 900 Albert, is that correct?
Yeah.
So has there been an agreement with the developer of 900 Albert?
Good question. Actually, no. Actually not. We right now is going to be removed. This is an old drawing. This connection will be removed as part of the P3 contract, but the system will be built in such a way that if there is a future agreement with this new development, the build out of the connection will be a matter of installing the pipeline.
So do I understand correctly then that they were approached, but they are not looking for district energy? Is that correct?
I don't have the details of that.
Could I get those details?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can see.
Okay.
I'm not sure how.
No, it's just such a extremely large development. We just gave them twice the amount of height that
I mean, right now,
secondary plan. I would just like to. I think that I would like to see this type of clean energy at such a large development. I realize it's not to you, but I would like to.
We have a group responsible for engaging the different users. Right now, we have a few private users, like for instance the U.S. Embassy and the Shaw Center, and we're looking at expanding the system to other buildings. I mean, right now our first priority is let's build a project.
Yes.
And in the process, let's establish the grounds for expansion to other buildings. District energy systems are like it's a long term. It takes a lot of time to.
So if I could get that from you, though, I'd like to understand whether they've been approached and what their rationale was, one way or the other, for whether accepting or not. Please. And then I'm looking at Le Breton Flats, not so much Le Breton Flats East, but Le Breton Flats proper, we'll call it, right across the street. So that's NCC property. So I assume that they are in agreement with...
they are fully engaged in our project. They are an active stakeholder. We're going through the flux process, and not only for the design of the Cliff plant, but as well the distribution network. And they are a great supporter of this project.
Okay, so they are going to be part of the district energy.
I mean, yes, we own, PSPC own, we are responsible for maintaining for operating the district energy system. We will have a specialized private partner to design, build, operate, and maintain. PSPC, they own the asset. And we are in consultation with the different stakeholders, City of Ottawa, NCC, City of Gatineau.
But I just want to be clear, though, the NCC owns LeBreton Flats. It's being redeveloped. I just want to be clear. Do you have an agreement with them that they sign on to district energy, to this cleaner energy?
So with NCC, we are securing the land rights to be able to install the distribution network. The details about LeBreton Flats, that's something that we are not involved.
Okay, well, I look forward to that and watching that very closely. Thank you.
Thank you, and I can report, it was maybe some 6 months ago or so, Councillor McKenney, that I helped to facilitate a meeting with several city managers with the private sector company that was developing 900 and with the federal government in order just to bring to their attention that this was an opportunity that might exist, which does lead me to a question, I guess, since I'll go straight into that now, and I know Councillor Nussbaum would like to ask some questions. To what degree do you find the cost that was certainly that came up in that meeting, was that great, fine, it's good to know about this, but of course we'll be looking at the bottom line. That's only natural. To what degree is, I suppose, interest or even reticence of potential customers, people signing on, hooking up to this system, a factor of the cost, and perhaps also a factor of non-familiarity in Ottawa with the system. I know I visited a number of Scandinavian cities where everybody knew it and everybody was using it, but that's not the case for Ottawa and most North American cities. So if you might give some comment on cost and lack of knowledge at the moment of how it works.
Yes, and it happens that the PSPC, we own a facility that already provides energy services to more than 80 buildings. So we have to do this facility, regardless of if we expand the system to other users. By all means, I mean, if we can expand the system to other users, the numbers will be even better business case, because once you install the generation assets, it's the economies of scale obtained by expanding the system to other buildings are very important, no? So by all means, I think that for the team, the first step is let's sign the contract with the private partner that will be responsible for designing, building, operate, and maintain. And slowly we will build out the communication, engaging the different stakeholders that they may be interested in the city. I think it will be a very successful thing to have the business card with a project that is being built right now, rather than with a project that is still in procurement phase, right? So I'm sure that once we have the contract in place, the project advances, I think we will have more time as well on our side to engage the different stakeholders in the cities to connect to the system.
So it's hard for a private sector potential client, if you will, to sign on to something when it's still, there's that risk that it may not happen. So back to Councillor McKenney's question, is there may or may not be strong interest from this particular company, but clearly that unknown is still an issue.
And stage one is going to provide a more efficient system, more reliable. Stage two will even further reduce the ESG emissions. There may be clients that they are very interested in. The first one is the cost, okay? So there is a great cost saving if I connect to the system. The second option is the greener objectives. They may meet their own objectives by connecting to the system, because the system will provide cleaner energy services. Also, we have to understand that building managers, they will look at the existing infrastructure, no, that they have in place. And usually what we see in district energy systems is that buildings, they connect to the system, and once it's time for them to rebuild their own internal generation capacity, no? If they have to change the boilers, they have to change the chillers, then they do the cost analysis, no? In other cases, they want to have, because of the criticality of their operations, they need to have second as a backup plan to be connected to a district energy system in case their own generation capacity fails. No? So those are things that the building managers they take into consideration when connecting to the system.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Nussbaum, you had questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. The first is, could you briefly, and I'm sure it's very complex, but could you, in a simple fashion, describe the science of what's being transmitted in the pipe? Is it steam? Yeah. And is there a limitless capacity, as part of that question, for how many buildings could conceivably join the system, or is there some threshold?
I'll try to very simple. Right now, for heating, we use steam. We transmit steam, which is not efficient and is not very safe to transmit steam to the buildings for heating. For cooling, we transmit cold water, cool water. Okay. Now with the new facility, what we're going to do is for heating, we will use, instead of steam, low temperature hot water. So in the plants, they use natural gas, biomass to produce the heating, and that heating is provided through with hot water, basically. And right now, the distribution network is being built to absorb certain capacity. We are looking at the different scenarios, no? And the distribution network is being sized to accommodate important capacity, because once it's built, it's difficult to go back and replace it, or you find other ways to connect the buildings with the generation plant. With the generation plant, it's quite easier, because basically we're building the buildings to accommodate the generation capacity to further expand it. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. My second question, and I think maybe this is a version of some of the questions which have already been asked, but I think a lot of us are interested to see how we can maximize the efficacy of this very important network. And maybe, I don't know if this is fair to say, but you're being put into perhaps a slightly unusual position for a government agency insofar as you're being asked to sell this to private sector partners. And I could tell from the tenor of a lot of the questions that it seems to me to make sense to try and get as many private sector partners involved along the distribution line as the physics or the science of the system allows. And in so doing, you said that there are economic questions for a builder. Are you able, if you were to sit down with, say, the owner of 900 Albert or a different owner, can you demonstrate what the economic savings are if you take a 50-year amortization period? Are you able to demonstrate huge energy cost savings to those partners, or because of the complication of building these plants that each building has to turn that hot water, the sort of geothermal elements, is it not necessarily for a private sector partner that obvious? So to summarize, what are the economics for a private sector partner of joining the distribution network?
Each case is different in terms of where is the building located, in terms of how much installed capacity they require, when in time they are. If it's a new building, the case may facilitate this option. Versus if they just installed the generation capacity 5-10 years ago, maybe the numbers don't build the case. Right now, the way it works, the building managers, they would have their own consultants that they will do this cost analysis, and there will be negotiations in terms of what is the rate structure from our side as well, and it's a very straightforward exercise with the consultants in place. It's a very straightforward exercise, but depends on each case.
And my last question, Mr. Chair, is I had heard that the National Research Council, the NRC East Campus at Montreal Road, and Blair, that there was some discussion with the Canada Lands Company about building as part of your extended network an element of district energy there. And that's of interest to me because that's in my ward. And also with the Canada Lands Company contemplating now in the next few years multi-residential buildings, there would be an opportunity to link with the NRC East Campus. And I'm just curious, since it wasn't on your map, could you just give me a quick sense if you're aware of any discussions or if that's that's not part of your map or not part of your plans? No. Okay, I'll have to pursue that question elsewhere. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Looper next.
Thanks, Chair. Just one follow-up and relatively pedestrian question, I think, for Court. On what basis is the city granting permission to the feds? Are we charging them for the infrastructure? Is it being provided without cost? It's not obviously a huge amount of real estate, but
Chair, through you. Yeah, there certainly are conversations ongoing right now on how those agreements will be structured. So where they are on...
Do you mind centering your mic a little more? We can't hear you too well. There we go.
I'm not to speak for real estate, but I do understand that they are looking at for all of the easement locations, the normal process for easements, and we are evaluating the existing infrastructure in the right-of-way and how we will move forward on dealing with that.
I hope we're approaching that conversation generously, because obviously we have the opportunity here to do something in terms of our climate change goals and energy evolution goals. So I presume that will come back to us at some point. The arrangements for the easements and the negotiations.
I believe they're all delegated authority for those agreements, for third-party infrastructure agreements, but yeah, I don't anticipate that there will be major issues on them.
So, yeah, anything that's being contemplated for our ward, for example, I would love to know before those are finalized by staff what the final arrangements are. And it sounds like you're maybe months, if not longer, away from concluding those.
Yes, yeah, they probably won't be until into 2019 for the final agreements.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair.
I'll just add, Chair, that certainly our intention today with inviting with our PSBC colleagues was to create awareness of the project amongst council and the affected ward councillors. So certainly, as we complete the work that Ms. Kirkner talked about doing under delegated authority, we'll bring forward at the very minimum a memo or an IPD to this committee to talk about those negotiations that Linda was speaking about, and about some of the other city projects that we're undertaking the business cases on for bringing onto the overall system.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
And I might add, some of the specifics, if they do have to come to committee, may end up coming to Transportation Committee. We actually had a bit of dialogue before this meeting about whether this was the appropriate place to have this presentation, but given the very close connection with our climate objectives and our energy evolution, it made sense on that front. But when it gets down to the specifics of right-of-way, etc., that would likely come up through Transportation Committee. Councillor Moffat was next, and then Cloutier.
Thank you. In your presentation, you mentioned a biomass facility that you're looking at in Gatineau. What's your planned feedstock for that facility?
We are looking at that. There is a feasibility study going on. We're looking at different options. We also have two pilot projects that we are now operating at Confederation Heights, CHCP, two small boilers, one with biofuels and one with biomass. And right now we're doing the feasibility study. The particular technology, that's something that will be determined in the next months.
Because I know in some cases you think of organics, for instance. Right now all of our organics go to Orga-World, but if there are multiple biomass facilities in the region, we could actually ship our organics to a biomass facility because it's the necessary feedstock that you would need to operate. So are you looking at that type of collection, that type of feedstock?
I think as part of the feasibility study, different technologies are being considered, and Obviously, the quality, the availability of the materials are always very important. The economics of the materials, also the efficiency of these materials, they are always very important considerations as part of the analysis. And we are going through. There is a specific team that is going through this analysis.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much, and clearly whatever direction we get now from the new provincial government in terms of mandatory composting or diversion of organics from household was something that was meant to be coming forward. So as a city, we'll need to be looking at what we can and can't do with organics. So we have Councillor Cloutier next, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you for the presentation. Just picking up on Councillor Moffat's question, so that I know, is it possible within a generating station to have different fuels, biomass, and other fuels within the same generating station producing there is? Okay, good. Can you confirm that is this building part of the district energy system?
At this moment, no.
No?
No.
It could be, though. This building and other provincial government buildings?
In terms of proximity, yes. I don't know the details of this building. I mean, your technical team will need to assess whether or not there is sufficient capacity, consumption, the economics, etc. I mean, in terms of proximity, the area that we have illustrated is very low investment opportunities, and because of the proximity to the source, right?
Right. Are any City of Ottawa buildings part of the...
Excuse me?
Are any City of Ottawa buildings currently part of...
At this moment, no. At this moment, we only have private buildings and mostly government-owned buildings.
Okay. Is there a logistical... Is there a logistical distance issue where buildings that can join the district energy system, for example, City of Ottawa buildings further out in the outskirts?
I mean, each case is different, right? And the proximity is the main limitation, right? Because the further you go, the less efficient you are, because you have to transport the low temperature hot water or the cool water. But in some cases, if there is a particular building that requires significant consumption, there may be a case to do that, right? So I mean. Look, we are bringing cool water from National Printing Bureau. We will be bringing cool water from there to downtown Ottawa, right? So it can give you an idea of in terms of the range, in terms of distances where this is still efficient, right?
But that's the Printing Bureau on Alexandre Taché, right?
That's
or somewhere there.
Sacré-Cœur,
okay. Yeah. It's not very far. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think for clarification, I'm looking back to some staff in the back. I believe currently City Hall, for example, there would need to be a conversion to the, we're on quite a high temperature right now system. Is that right? Anyone can answer that? Just be useful for us to know what the technical changes are and investment in a new system in this building and perhaps others in order to be able to link into your system. Yeah. Thank you. If you could introduce yourself for us.
Yeah, Leo Morris, Director of Facilities. Could you repeat the question?
I'm just wondering, we were asked whether the City Hall was connected or could be connected, and if it was just a matter of distance or whether there were actually technical issues around that. And my understanding is as things are currently built, there would be a fairly significant conversion required.
We're currently in discussion with the district energy people to figure out all the details. We have a meeting this afternoon, as a matter of fact, with some of the staff and the consultant involved that will provide us more details in terms of numbering and whatnot.
technically doable, I understand, but there would be a conversion investment required to...
Yeah, there would be conversion investment from our own.
Thank you. So I think at this point we're looking forward to more information and coming forward, I guess, into the next term as to what the options are and decisions to be made in the future. But it sounds like a great opportunity for us. So thank you very much. I'm not seeing other councillors wanting to ask questions. I greatly appreciate your attendance. Merci d'être venu. And thank you. We will stay in touch, as they say. All right, so thank you. That concludes that presentation. That then does bring us to Councillor Aglai's motion and Councillor McKenney. I'm not sure who wants to introduce it here.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a motion that I'm bringing to committee this morning. I've worked with Councillor Aglai and I worked on this together. Essentially, you know, we do a lot of what is required already, but this will hopefully, if we follow through the next term of council, it means we will do more, and we will do it more consistently to ensure that that we are, you know, strengthening pollinator health in the city. We have a large city by population and but especially by land mass, and I think that we have the opportunity to have a very you know, big impact on this issue. So. Essentially what the motion does is it you know, ensures that we are responding to the dramatic decline in pollinators, you know, around the globe, but here we know that has serious environmental impacts. And it, you know, by becoming a bee city, we would essentially, you know, look at how the city would, you know, create healthy pollinator habitat, educate about pollinators, and work towards those goals. So I'll just read for resolve that the Environment and Climate Protection Committee today directs staff to investigate actions that are required to ensure prospective compliance with the program, analyze specific actions and budget requirements to achieve the desired goals in the city's proposed commitment to the Bee City program, and bring a report to the committee no later than the end of Q1 2019 to determine whether or not to proceed with the application process and to make recommendations to committee on the application process.
Thank you. And Councillor Aglai, you wanted to speak to this?
Yeah, very quickly, and I want to thank Catherine for helping me with this and facilitating it being brought to your committee, and also for your assistance as well as the chair. The idea was presented to me by one of my residents who's a master gardener, and she got me thinking about it, and we chatted about it, and then did a bit more research, and then Councillor McKenney and I met with staff and saw, as she pointed out, that many of the things that, many of the indicators necessary, such as having a robust community program, for example, having a pesticide control process and program. We already have all these things. There's a lot of interest out in the public. There's a petition out there with over 1,200 signatures on it right now. I found out over the weekend, doing a bit more research, that our new market board is intending to set up pollinator gardens in the Barwood Market over the next little while. So there's a lot of interest in it, and I think it's a way for the city to say that we're aware of this environmental concern. We already have some of the pieces in play, and we want to put it all together. I think it's an educational piece which will allow us to reach out and open the door for discussion on some of the other environmental concerns that we are struggling with and dealing with in the city, so I'd ask everybody to please support it for no other reason that I wore the bee tie that my wife bought for me, and I'd hate to think that was a waste today. But seriously, I think it's something that we're basically already doing. It's just pulling together resources that are already there. But I also think it makes a statement to people out there that are concerned about the environment that the city does take it seriously, and we are taking steps forward to move forward that agenda to treat our city in a little bit more of an environmentally friendly way. So again, I hope that everybody can support this. Thank you.
Councillor Moffat. Yeah. Councillor Egley had me until he mentioned his B tie. There's requirements, I believe, to form a working group under this.
Yes, one of the requirements is to put together a working group from the community and city staff.
Can I give direction? No, can I give direction to staff that we consider that our already established Environmental Stewardship Advisory Committee be considered the working group for this? It's just when you're doing the review and you're going to come back to us with the report, I realize I'm just talking at the air right now because I don't think anyone in this room is actually going to be doing this report. Is that I think that needs to be considered. We already have this group, they're already established, they're already there, they advise this committee. I think it's the ideal source for where you would place this working group rather than creating a whole new layer. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, the only proviso is they may have to reach out to someone with a bit more expertise in the area of bees and pollination gardens and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I think that's quite a reasonable suggestion.
I think you would just include that in your submission for membership next term.
Yep, no, I think that's quite reasonable. Yeah.
I just add my 2 cents. It's a motion I'll support, and I think it's good for the city to consider additional alternatives. I'll just point out more for staff's awareness. Hydro One did a lot of clear cut from Maryville to Russell Road last year to make sure the expanding foliage underneath their hydro was maintained. And it left a huge gap, but what they replaced it with was not only grass, but a pollinator mix. So Hydro One has stepped up. They recognize that this is important, and a lot of what has gone in this corridor now, particularly in my ward, is just that, a pollinator mix to address what's being raised here. So if there's any value in our staff, even touching base with Hydro One, that might be something that they want to look at.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, just in position, I'm certainly pleased to support this. I know that as a council, and I'm sure Hydro as well, we're always aiming to get A's in whatever we do, but this would be one case where we're really content with a lot of B's. On that note, yes. All right. On this motion, thank you very much for bringing this forward, and thank you to committee. So that does bring us to the end of our agenda items. We have no in-camera items. Any notices of motions? Seeing none. Any inquiries? Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My inquiry is the following. Does the city offer any program or assistance for residents who have hazardous waste material but do not have the means or ability to dispose of it at a depot?
Thanks for that. And any other inquiries? Seeing none. Any others? Also seeing none then, this meeting is adjourned. The next meeting, Tuesday the 20th of November.